If Jonathan Lyau isn't sleeping or working, chances are he's either running or preparing to run. Since he was a young boy, he's run the equivalent of Los Angeles to New York City 38 times.
I guess I've been averaging probably about, over my lifetime, about almost 50 miles a week. So that's about 43 years of running. You're talking over 2,000 miles a year running. I've got about 106,000 miles total on my body right now.
And all original parts.
Original parts. I got some fixes, but you know, still original.
Funny thing though, running wasn't even his first love. It was basketball. But he learned pretty quickly he probably wasn't cut out for that.
I stopped playing basketball, and at the same time too, I realized I wasn't going to grow much either. And I'm still 5'2".
But it was through his endurance training for basketball that he realized he could run laps around all of his teammates. That's when he came across something that would set him off on his lifelong path.
I saw a notice in the school paper for cross country. I said, that's kind of running, sounds interesting, so I joined that. And I started to improve with that, and I realized I needed to kind of keep on running to keep on improving.
And improve he did. The young boy running cross country from McKinley High School eventually started running marathons. And it was in his second marathon that he broke that elusive 3-hour mark.
So I was a junior in high school when I did that. I was 16 and a half years old.
And do you remember your time?
I ran a 2:57.
Turns out that sub-3 marathon would be the first of about 40 now, where he broke the 3-hour mark, and it set him off on an unlikely journey to run a marathon in less than 3 hours over the course of 5 different decades. First in his teens, then his 20s, 30s, 40s, and most recently in his 50s.
At the time, the years just start going by, and I started thinking, okay, sub 3 hours, I can do it. Felt pretty good, felt like very doable, and even in my 40s, I was running well. Sub 3 was no problem.
But of course, as the years add up and the time went by, those 26.2 miles, well, they didn't get any easier.
And it started getting harder. It started creeping up to what I was running like in high school, and I'm thinking, okay, it's getting harder, and I decided to actually retire from running marathons.
But then a funny thing happened on the way to retirement. He decided to give it another go.
And I actually ran a 2:58.
And that was your fourth sub.
That was my, that was my last sub 3, so that made it 4 decades.
Unfortunately for him, the next decade would still be many years away, so once again, the idea seemed out of reach. But then the pandemic hit, gym shut down, and Jonathan found himself back out there where he's most comfortable, running.
And I realized I started getting stronger. I could handle more distance. So I started thinking about doing that in a new decade.
That new decade would be the 2020s, Jonathan in his 50s. And feeling good, he set out to give it a shot. A 5th decade of sub-3-hour marathons from his teens to the 50s. And it didn't come easy. And it didn't come on his first try, or his second, or his third.
It actually didn't happen until the 4th time.
He hoped it would happen at the Honolulu Marathon, his home race. But it wasn't to be.
It's just a difficult course to run in. It was, windy, the hills, the humidity that day. And then I tried again in February. So December was Honolulu. I failed. I tried again in February. During my build-up, I had a severely sprained ankle. I actually ended up running the marathon with a still swollen ankle. I probably shouldn't have even tried that.
His next attempt was going well, but the racers were let off course, and they wound up running an extra 3/4 of a mile. Finally, in December of 2022, he decided to enter the Big Island Marathon, and even though he says he didn't feel too well, he knew it was time to dig deep.
Because the last 3 miles were tough. And yeah, I kept on looking at my watch like every minute.
Every second.
Yeah, I was like, am I gonna do this? How close am I? But people were encouraging me. I mean, just, you can't give up, so I knew I was close.
And you crossed the finish line at what time?
2:59:15.
45
yes,
seconds to spare.
it was close, and if it weren't for some people encouraging me along the way, I probably would have slowed down enough to maybe not hit it. I was that close to giving up.
But he didn't, and now he's the first person in Hawaii and one of only about 50 people in the entire world to do what he has done.
A lot of people know who he is and what he's done for the sport. It's always a great thing, and then it's also good for my son, who also is running as well. So yeah, it's pretty good. I think he'll always run until maybe he can't.
I mean, it feels great. It's just hard to, fathom this. It's being the first in Hawaii to do it. And then I started thinking my next goal, maybe when I'm 60 in a year and a half, maybe I can do it in my 6th decade of life. But that remains to be seen. I just wanted to get this. It's such a huge relief, and I'm just so happy that I did this.